I filed the incident report 3 times before the Empire's central registry would accept it. The form had no field for distress pulse collided with a foreign signal at relay node junction 7, and the collision was logged by a third party's automated system as a mutual aid request. The form had a field for equipment malfunction. I used that. I noted, under comments, that the equipment in question was not ours. My name is Archivist Intelligence 2nd Class Devin Moores, and I was aboard the relay station Cerulean Anchorage when the two pulses met. I should explain what I mean by met, because it is not a poetic word in this context. It is a technical one. Our retreat from the Ledhani corridor had been orderly in the way that retreats are when the officers calling them orderly are trying to prevent a rout. The 3rd Consolidation Fleet pulled out in stages. They sent the standard war pulse on withdrawal, a wideband emergency flash, frequencies Kappa through Omega, intended to reach our own logistics command and no one else. The pulse said, "We are pulling back. We need resupply." Sent a tug convoy to coordinates 7 Alpha 19. I was monitoring from Cerulean Anchorage, which sits at Junction 7, the node where 4 relay corridors converge. I had been at my post for 11 years. I knew what a war pulse looked like on the scope. What I did not know, what no one stationed at Junction 7 had apparently checked in the 40 years the station had been operational, was that Earth's emergency mutual aid network ran a passive beacon on frequencies Lambda and Nu. Lambda and Nu sit inside the Kappa Omega band. When the 3rd Consolidation Fleet's war pulse hit Junction 7, it did not pass cleanly through the node. Half of it continued on its correct path toward Logistics Command. The other half collided with Earth's passive beacon, and by a mechanism I have now had explained to me 4 times and still find difficult to believe, the collision was interpreted by Earth's automated relay network as a simultaneous transmission from 2 separate parties, one being our fleet, one being the passive beacon, and their system logged the aggregate as a mutual aid activation under the terms of the Jothran Compact. I did not know there was a Jothran Compact. I have since learned that 42 years ago, an Empire trade envoy signed a procedural framework agreement with an Earth diplomatic vessel at Junction 7, at this station at the desk 3 meters to my left, covering emergency signal protocols in the Junction corridor. The framework agreement contained, in its appendix, a mutual aid clause. The clause specified that any wideband emergency transmission on frequencies Kappa through Omega, if received by an Earth relay node, would be treated as a formal aid request unless explicitly canceled within 90 seconds. No one had told us to cancel anything. We did not know we needed to. Earth's automated network sent an acknowledgement ping 40 seconds after the collision. It arrived on frequencies Lambda and Nu, which is to say it arrived on the passive beacon's own channel, which is to say it arrived on a frequency we did not routinely monitor because it was not our frequency. I found the acknowledgement 11 minutes later during a routine sweep. By that time, the clock had long since run. I filed the first of my emergency communiques to Logistics Command at 14:07 station time. I said, Earth's network has logged an aid request that we did not make. Advise. At 14:19, I filed a second communique. I said, Earth's network has now confirmed dispatch. Advise urgently. At 14:33, I stopped waiting for Logistics Command and sent a direct hail to the Earth Convoy's lead vessel on the frequency listed in the acknowledgement ping. The officer who answered sounded neither alarmed nor particularly surprised. Her name was something I could not fully parse through the translation layer, and her rank was something my file on Earth military structure listed as mid-level command. She said the convoy had already been underway for 26 minutes. She said it would reach coordinates 7 Alpha 19 in approximately 4 hours. She asked if the aid request had been for resupply only, or if there were personnel casualties requiring the hospital vessel. I told her I was not authorized to confirm or deny the nature of our fleet's withdrawal. She said that was fine, and that the hospital vessel would hold position at the convoy's perimeter unless called forward. She said it as though this were standard procedure. She said it as though she received calls from intelligence archivists who were not authorized to confirm withdrawals every other week. I asked her if she was aware that the original pulse had not been aimed at Earth's network. There was a pause, not a long one. She said, I'm aware the activation was automated. The Joffrin Compact doesn't distinguish between deliberate and automated requests. The clause fired. We answered. I said, the Empire has not formally requested your assistance. She said, the Empire's emergency band formally requested our assistance 42 years ago when it agreed to include Lambda and Nu in the mutual aid activation window. We're just a part that shows up. I did not have a response to that. I recorded the exchange for my incident report, noted that her tone throughout was calm and procedural, and closed the channel. At 1851, the convoy arrived at coordinates 7 Alpha 19. I watched it on the scope because I did not know what else to do. 3 supply vessels, 1 escort ship, midweight, the class Earth designates as a rapid response frigate, 1 hospital vessel, hanging back at exactly the perimeter the officer had described, running its beacon on a low band, so our fleet could call it forward without broadcasting to the corridor at large. The convoy held formation and sent a single short-band hail to the 3rd Consolidation Fleet's logistics frequency. The hail said, in our own signal format, that the convoy was prepared to transfer fuel cells, repair materials, and medical staff per the terms of the Joffrin Compact, Appendix C. The logistics officer on our side apparently spent 40 seconds reading Appendix C before responding. I understand the feeling. What followed was not a crisis. That is what I find hardest to explain in the incident report. The resupply was efficient. The Earth crews did not require supervision. They knew our fuel cell housing specifications. Not because they had been briefed, but because, as I learned from the manifest documentation they shared afterward, Junction 7 convoys have been carrying the adapter modules as standard kit for 11 years. 11 years. Since before I arrived at this post. Someone on the Earth side had looked at the Joffrin Compact, noted that the 3rd Consolidation Fleet ran patrols in this corridor, and had quietly built the means to be useful. They had not mentioned it. They had not asked for acknowledgement. They had just carried the adapters, convoy after convoy, in case the clause ever fired. It fired. They came. The hospital vessel was called forward twice. Once for a crew member with an atmospheric injury from the retreat. Once for a structural team who needed to inspect a hull fracture on the fleet tender before it was safe to move. The medical staff returned to the hospital ship after both calls without ceremony. The structural team filed a written assessment and left a copy with our engineering lead. The engineering lead told me later that the assessment was thorough and that the recommendations were sound. At 2240, the convoy signaled that transfer was complete. The officer I had spoken to earlier sent one final short-band message to my station frequency. I do not know how she found my station frequency. The message said, Joffrin Compact, Appendix C, Mutual Aid Transfer Complete. Compact clause now dormant until next activation. Recommend your logistics command review the activation window annually. Lambda and Nu will stay live. Convoy departing. Safe corridor. She did not ask for thanks. She did not invoke the compact as a demonstration of anything. She stated what had happened, told me the clause was dormant again, and left. I watched the convoy's engine signatures shrink on the scope until they cleared the node's sensor range. Then I sat at my post and looked at the incident report that the registry kept rejecting. Here's what I know. Our fleet sent a pulse to their own logistics command. The pulse collided with a beacon we did not know was there. Earth's automated network interpreted the collision as a mutual aid request. Earth's convoy was already prepared, had been prepared, it turns out, for more than a decade, and was underway before any living officer on either side had made a deliberate decision. By the time I found the acknowledgement ping, the clock had already run. By the time I filed my first communique, the convoy was 26 minutes along a 4-hour course. We did not ask them. The compact asked them on our behalf, because 42 years ago someone signed Appendix C, and 42 years of convoy kits had quietly followed. I filed the incident report a 4th time. This time I did not try to fit it into equipment malfunction. I found the field marked External Coordination unplanned. I filled in the details. I attached the convoy manifest, the engineering assessment, the medical logs, the officer's final message. Under Outcome, I wrote, Resupply complete, no casualties, fleet tender cleared for movement. All Jothran compact obligations fulfilled. I did not write what I actually thought, which was this: they did not need us to ask. They only needed us to have agreed, once, decades ago, to leave the window open. We had, and when the signal fell through it, they came.